Does Sony even need to make an a7S IV? This is my a7S III, a camera that I bought brand new right whenever it came out in 2020, and it has been a fantastic workhorse of a camera. But ever since Sony released the FX3, a camera with the same sensor that is more video focused and has also received more attention from Sony in the form of firmware upgrades, has me wondering, is the a7S III the last in the line of the a7S series of cameras? Hey, by the way, my name is Matt Johnson. I make a lot of videos about cameras and filmmaking, as well as guides for cameras like the a7S III and FX3, which I will link to down in the video description if you want to learn the absolute best settings to use when filming with these cameras. Oh, and this video is also sponsored by my friends at Bride&Groom Video. We'll talk more about them later, because in this video, I want to talk about my feelings about this question of the a7S IV. Does Sony even need to make one? Because I think that there are good arguments to be had on both sides. Let's start by talking about reasons why it won't happen and why we won't ever see an a7S IV, and we're going to begin with the biggest one. Arguably, the reason that I and so many other filmmakers love and use the a7S III versus the FX3 is the EVF, or electronic viewfinder, the thing that you put your eye up to and check your composition and focus, which is a feature that I absolutely love, especially whenever I'm filming outdoors on a bright and sunny day. I have lost track of the amount of times that I've been filming a wedding, the couple's getting married at sunset, and it's hard to see the camera screen on the back, even at full brightness due to reflections and the sun being in my eyes. But being able to close one eye and put the other up to the viewfinder, you start to understand why cameras have had viewfinders basically forever. Compare that to the FX3, on the other hand, no viewfinder in sight. And that is arguably a big limitation of the camera. And I'm sure that may lead you thinking, Matt, you said these arguments are about why the a7S line shouldn't continue, but you're making a good argument for it by saying that it has viewfinder when the FX3 does not. And you're correct. But I want you to now think about another Sony cinema camera, one that they released far more recently and that has the best of both worlds, at least when it comes to the EVF. This camera is the FX2, and with it, you're getting a camera with extremely similar build quality to the FX3, which is very loved, but with the addition of a video-centric EVF, which I have to say, whenever Sony first introduced the FX2 and told me they were adding an EVF made for filmmakers, I was a bit skeptical because what the heck makes an EVF be for filmmakers? Well, it all comes down to the articulation of the EVF, in that this one can either be facing directly out the back of the camera like a traditional EVF, or you can tilt it up to 90 degrees vertically. And believe it or not, this makes a massive difference. With photography, you're usually holding up a camera to your eye and pointing at whatever you're photographing. But whenever you're filming, you typically are holding your camera down toward your chest, providing greater stabilization to the camera while still allowing you to tilt up the screen to be able to see what you are filming. Then, by adding a tilting EVF to the FX2, Sony made this EVF dramatically more usable when filming from this chest position, and it is so comfortable to look down into and use, and I love it. So, bringing us back now to this argument of how the a7S series is better for filmmaking because it has an EVF, you cannot tell me that Sony went to all the trouble of researching and developing a video EVF, and then only putting it in arguably one of their least popular cinema cameras, the FX2? No, Sony has done this time and time again, where they introduce a feature on one camera that is groundbreaking, and even if that camera is not the best, that's okay, because then they're going to add this feature to all of their other newer cameras that are better as well. Fun fact, whenever Sony released the a7S III with the flip-out screen that filmmakers loved and still love, remember, the a7S II and prior only had a screen that would tilt up and down, making it impossible to film yourself. The a7S III wasn't the first camera that offered this flip-out screen, though. It was actually the ZV-1, a rather low-powered and cheap vlogging video camera. But Sony went to all the trouble of developing that nice screen, so of course they're going to use it in the a7S III as well as all of their future cameras, like the FX3 as well. So, here's my point. If your argument is that the a7S line is better because it has an EVF, I would bet serious money that all of their other future versions of Sony cinema cameras like an FX3 Mark II, etc., are going to have the same video-centric EVF from the FX2, which is incredible, and it's gonna make you question why you would ever need an a7S IV with an old photography-focused EVF. Anyways, moving on to the second reason that Sony will not release an a7S IV, and that is because they may not want to release a camera like this without a fan. The a7S line of cameras has always been more focused on filmmakers, and as video quality, resolutions, and bit rates get only higher and higher, it's become more and more important that cameras have fans in them. But Sony has also never put a fan in a non-cinema body before. Would they do that? Would they copy Panasonic, who's been putting fans in all their newer cameras? Or will Sony continue as they've been doing for years and only include a fan on the cinema version of a camera like an FX3 or FX30, etc.? Sure, Sony could improve passive cooling with the a7S IV where it doesn't need a fan, but considering that a lot of their competition who offer higher resolution and frame rates like 6K at 60 frames per second pretty much all have cameras that do overheat, eventually a fan makes a lot of sense, but it also points towards Sony skipping the a7S IV and focusing all their attention on an FX3 Mark II that would have a fan. All right, I think that these are two good reasons why Sony will not be releasing an a7S IV. But on the other side of the argument, I think there are very compelling reasons for why we will see an a7S IV. So let's talk about them right after I tell you about the sponsor of this video, my friends at Bride&Groom Video. Look, if you're a video editor like me, you know how time-consuming editing can become, especially if you're editing a wedding film or photos from a wedding. But what if you had someone there to help you with your editing, an entire team that could help you edit your videos and photos faster? That's where my friends at Bride&Groom Video come in. Their team of expert video editors will help you crush your backlog with turnaround times as quick as 2 weeks. Yes, imagine getting those edits back that you've been putting off for months now, back in 14 days, fully edited for you. And not only are they fast, they are incredibly affordable too, with some of the lowest prices for video editing starting at only $195 for an edit. Take it from me, I've been personally using Bride&Groom Video for over 2 years now to help me edit all of my wedding films and YouTube videos, and the odds are that if you've watched a video of mine recently, it was edited by Bride&Groom Video. They offer a service that I use and absolutely love, and everyone that I've sent their way has been extremely impressed by their editing speed and quality. If you want more proof of how great they are, I have a great offer for you too. Go to their website, linked in the description, sign up to have them edit your next video, and while you're checking out, use the coupon code MATT100. That is going to get you $100 off your first edit of $400 or more. And remember, they offer unlimited revisions of your first project. They will keep working on it for no extra cost until you are absolutely 100% happy with it, and they learn your style so they can copy it and get your edits done even faster. So it's time for you to knock out your backlog, and Bride&Groom Video can absolutely help with that. Go check them out right now. Back to the a7S IV, starting with the biggest and most obvious reason. Why would Sony make this camera? Because people will buy it. Even now with the FX3 being readily available and arguably a better option for filmmakers, the a7S III still sells incredibly well. Why is that? Why are filmmakers still buying it? I think that there are really 3 reasons. First, you have the EVF, which we just talked about. There are a lot of filmmakers that still want to have an EVF on their camera. Second, the a7S III is still more of a photo-centric camera than the FX3. Both the FX3 and a7S III can take photos, but if the FX3 is like 90% video focused, 10% photo focused, I know a lot of filmmakers are like, wait, it can take photos? Yeah, same as the a7S III. Did you know that? No. Well, on the other hand, the a7S III is more like 70% video focused and 30% photo focused. It still feels like a photo camera at the end of the day, and I've used it many times to take photos. So for people that are looking for a camera that's extremely good at video while still being decent at photo, they may be more attracted to an a7S IV over an FX3 Mark II. And lastly, here's the biggest reason that I think that people are buying the a7S III versus the FX3, and it's really simple. It's the price. when it first released, the a7S III was $400 cheaper than the FX3, coming in at $3,500 versus $3,900. But now the price on both these cameras has actually gone up several $100s, with the FX3 going up from $3,900 to $4,300, while the a7S III is now sitting at $300 cheaper at $4,000. It's only a $300 price difference now, but seeing a camera with a price starting with a 3 versus a 4 has served to make the a7S III even more attractive to buyers. And then whenever you consider that the a7S III has been out longer than the FX3, which means there's a greater chance for it to go on sale, as well as it being easier to find used for a bigger discount, these are all good arguments for why the price has been such a huge determining factor in why the a7S III has sold so well. And this leads us into the second reason why Sony will release an a7S IV, because in addition to the fact that people will buy it, Sony is incentivized as a company to make an a7S IV. If you haven't watched my Where is the FX3 Mark II video yet, in that video I go into detail about how Sony's business is structured with a sensor division and a camera division, where these two divisions work hand in hand, one making sensors and the other using those sensors in the cameras, while incentivizing Sony to make a wider variety of cameras so they can sell more sensors. I highly recommend watching that video, which I will link to in the video description, but here's my main point from that video. Sony has shown us repeatedly as customers that they are willing to make a very wide variety of cameras that will hit a number of different price points. So it makes a lot of sense for them to create an a7S IV, because there will be a lot of people that will buy it and therefore generate revenue for both the camera division and the sensor division. Now, in that Where is the FX3 Mark II video, I actually didn't go as deep as I could have, because there's another layer to Sony's camera divisions. And in my opinion, this shows us another big reason why we will see the a7S IV. So let's get out the whiteboard here so I can properly illustrate this for you. Sony's camera division isn't just cameras with all of them thrown into a bucket. No, there are actually 3 separate subdivisions under the camera's banner. So first you have the Alpha camera division, which is what you would normally think about for Sony cameras. So the A7 series, A7S, A7R, A7C, A9 series of cameras, etc. Then you have the Cinema camera division, which is actually under the Professional Solutions division. You're like, what is that, Matt? Why are they calling it that? I don't know. Sony loves their weird names. So you also have Pro Solutions, which is going to be cameras like the FX3, FX6, FX9, RIP, Burano, Venice, etc. And then you also have the Broadcast division, which is going to be all of those cameras that they use in the sports world, studios, television, etc. Sony makes a bazillion cameras for that as well, which is under this Professional Solutions division. So while people think that Alpha cameras like the a7S III and FX3 are closely related, considering they share a lot of the same sensors, they are actually still completely separate teams with separate goals and directives. Have you ever been jealous because your FX3 got a firmware update that added a feature that wasn't added to your a7S III? That's because the Cinema camera division handled that, not the Alpha camera division. And this shows that there's an argument for Sony to continue making the a7S series of cameras, because that would be headed up by the Alpha division, not the Professional Solutions division that makes the Cinema cameras. Because while they share a lot of the same DNA and sensors, etc., it would not be at all surprising if both of these camera divisions wanted to have their own version of an a7S IV or FX3 sensor that they could make tweaks to and customize the body around. So does Sony even need to make an a7S IV? Well, that's actually not the question that you should be asking, because in my opinion, the question should be, why would Sony not make an a7S IV? I, for one, am betting that they will. But please, let me know what you think of this in the comments. Do you think that Sony is going to make an a7S IV? And if so, would you buy it? While you're down there, I'll also link to my pro video guides for the Sony FX3 and a7S III, as well as my free filmmaker gear guide that will show you all the best cameras and accessories that I recommend for filmmaking. I highly recommend that you check it out. It's absolutely free for you to download. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you want to see more videos about filmmaking and deep dives on cameras like this. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great day.